I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I clutched the phone. The text message from Martin glowed on the screen. Working late again. Don't wait up. Lies. All lies. I glanced at the clock. 7:30 p.m. Olivia would be home from soccer practice any minute. How could I face my daughter knowing what I knew about her father? The front door slammed, and Olivia's voice rang out. "Mom, I'm starving." I quickly wiped my eyes and plastered on a smile. "In the kitchen, sweetie. How was practice?" Olivia bounced in, her ponytail swinging. At 15, she was the spitting image of me at that age. Before I met Martin, before everything changed. "It was great. Coach says I might start next game." "That's wonderful, honey." I turned to the fridge, grateful for the distraction. "How about some pasta for dinner?" "Sounds good. Where's Dad?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I gripped the refrigerator door, steadying myself. "He's working late." Olivia groaned. "Again? He's always working these days." If only that were true. I took a deep breath and faced my daughter. "Liv, there's something we need to talk about." Her brow furrowed. "What's wrong, Mom? You look upset." I gestured to the kitchen table. "Let's sit down." As we settled into our chairs, I reached for Olivia's hand. Her fingers were calloused from hours of soccer practice, but they still felt so small in mine. How could I shatter her world? "Honey, your father and we're having some problems." Olivia's eyes widened. "What kind of problems?" I swallowed hard. "I've discovered that your father has been seeing someone else." The words hung in the air between us. Olivia jerked her hand away, her face a mask of disbelief. "What? No, Dad wouldn't do that." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I wish it wasn't true, but—" "You're lying." Olivia shot to her feet, her chair scraping across the floor. "Dad loves us. He wouldn't cheat." The phone in my pocket buzzed. Another text from Martin, grabbing drinks with the guys. "Be home late." I pulled out the phone, my hands shaking. "Liv, look." She snatched the phone, her eyes scanning the message. "So, he's out with friends. That doesn't mean anything." "Olivia, please. I know this is hard to hear, but—" The front door opened and Martin's voice called out. "Anyone home?" Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. Before I could stop her, she bolted from the kitchen. "Now, Dad! Mom's saying awful things about you. Tell her she's wrong." I followed, my heart pounding. Martin stood in the entryway, briefcase in hand, looking bewildered. "What's going on?" Olivia thrust my phone at him. "Mom says you're cheating, but that's not true, right? Tell her." Martin's face drained of color as he read the text. His eyes met mine, and in that moment I saw the truth written all over his face. "Oh, Liv," I whispered. Olivia looked from Martin to me and back again. The realization dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by hurt and anger. "How could you?" she screamed at Martin. Then she turned and ran up the stairs, slamming her bedroom door. Martin took a step toward me. "Elaine, I can explain." I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't. Just don't." We stood there in silence, the weight of broken promises and shattered trust hanging between us. Finally I spoke. "I want a divorce." Martin's shoulders sagged. "Elaine, please, we can work this out, for Olivia's sake." "No," I cut him off. "We're done. I'm taking Olivia and leaving." "You can't just take her." Martin's voice rose. "She's my daughter, too." I met his gaze, steel in my voice. "Watch me." As I turned to head upstairs and comfort our daughter, one thought crystallized in my mind. I would do whatever it took to protect Olivia and build a new life for us, with or without Martin's cooperation. I sat at Teresa's kitchen table, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. My best friend of 20 years listened intently as I poured out the whole sordid tale. "I just can't believe it, Teresa. 23 years of marriage, and this is how it ends." Teresa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Oh, Elaine, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do now?" I sighed, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. "I don't know. I told Martin I want a divorce, but... God, how did we get here?" As I spoke, memories flooded back. Martin and I, young and in love, dancing at our wedding. The joy on his face when Olivia was born. Family vacations, holiday dinners, quiet nights curled up on the couch. When had it all started to unravel? "Remember when you first introduced us?" I asked Teresa. "That New Year's Eve party at your place?" She smiled softly. "How could I forget? Martin couldn't take his eyes off you all night." He was so charming back then. Funny, attentive. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Teresa's expression turned serious. "Elaine, you can't blame yourself for this. Martin made his choices." I nodded, fighting back tears. I know, it's just, we struggled so much these past few years. The financial stress, Martin's job changes, Olivia hitting her difficult teenage phase. I thought we were in it together, you know? A team. And now I feel like a fool. I stood up abruptly, pacing Teresa's small kitchen. All those late nights at the office, the sudden business trips. How long has this been going on? How many other women have there been? Teresa stood and wrapped me in a hug. Oh, honey, you don't need to torture yourself with those questions. What matters now is taking care of yourself and Olivia. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. When are you coming home? Dad keeps trying to talk to me. I showed Teresa the message, my stomach churning. I don't know how to protect her from this, Teresa. She idolized Martin. You start by being honest with her, Teresa said firmly, and by showing her that you're strong enough to get through this, both of you. I nodded, gathering my resolve. You're right, we need to make a clean break, start fresh. What about the house? Teresa asked. I hesitated. The house had been our dream, a beautiful Victorian we'd spent years restoring. But now, I can't stay there, too many memories. Besides, I don't think I can afford it on my own. You know, Teresa said slowly, my sister's rental property just opened up. It's smaller, but it's in a great school district for Olivia, and I'm sure Sarah would give you a good deal. Hope flickered in my chest. Really? That could work. As I gathered my things to leave, Teresa pulled me in for another hug. You've got this, Elaine. And I'm here for you, every step of the way. I drove home, my mind racing with plans and worries. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Martin's car still parked there. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I wasn't ready to face him again. Not yet. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the house. Olivia was curled up on the couch, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Martin sat in the armchair, looking lost. Mom! Olivia launched herself into my arms. Where were you? Dad's been trying to explain, but I don't want to hear it. I stroked her hair, shooting a warning glance at Martin. It's okay, sweetie. We don't have to talk about it right now. Martin stood, his face a mask of guilt and desperation. Elaine, please, can we just... Not now, I cut him off. Olivia, why don't you go upstairs and start packing some things? We're going to stay at Aunt Teresa's for a few days. As Olivia trudged upstairs, Martin stepped closer. You can't just take her, Elaine. We need to work this out. I met his gaze, steel in my voice. No, Martin, you lost the right to make demands when you broke our vows. I'm doing what's best for our daughter. As I turned to follow Olivia upstairs, Martin called out, I'll fight you on this, Elaine. I swear I will. I paused at the foot of the stairs, a chill running down my spine. The battle lines were drawn, and I knew the real fight was just beginning. The guest room at Teresa's house felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching Olivia unpack her hastily thrown-together suitcase. Mom? Her voice was small, vulnerable. What's going to happen now? I patted the spot next to me, and she sat down, leaning her head on my shoulder. I don't know all the details yet, sweetie, but I promise you we're going to be okay. Olivia sniffled. I hate him, Mom. I hate what he did to us. My heart ached at her words. Oh, Liv, I know you're hurting, but try not to let hate consume you. Your father made terrible choices, but he still loves you. She jerked away from me, eyes flashing. How can you say that? If he loved us, he wouldn't have cheated. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Adults can make mistakes, even huge ones, without stopping loving their children. What your father did was wrong, but it doesn't erase the good times or the love he has for you. Olivia stood up, pacing the small room. I don't care. I don't want to see him or talk to him ever again. Liv. I mean it, Mom. She whirled to face me, tears streaming down her cheeks. He abandoned us. He chose her over his family. How am I supposed to forgive that? I stood and pulled her into a tight hug, feeling her body shake with sobs. You don't have to forgive him right now, or maybe ever. But I need you to know that this isn't your fault. Your father's choices are his own. As Olivia's tears subsided, I gently guided her back to the bed. Listen, sweetie, I know this is hard, but I need you to be strong. We're going to get through this together, okay? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay, Mom, I trust you. A knock at the door interrupted us. Teresa poked her head in. Sorry to bother you, but Elaine, Martin's here. He's demanding to see Olivia. My stomach clenched. Absolutely not. He can't just show up here and... I want to see him, Olivia said suddenly. I turned to her, surprised. Are you sure? You don't have to if you're not ready. Olivia's jaw set in a determined line. I'm sure. I have some things I need to say to him. Reluctantly, I nodded. All right, but I'm coming with you. We followed Teresa downstairs to find Martin pacing in the living room. When he saw Olivia, his face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Olivia crossed her arms, her voice ice cold. Sorry for what, Dad? For cheating on Mom? For lying to us? For breaking apart our family? Martin flinched. Liv, please. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I want to make this right. You can't make this right. Olivia's voice rose. You ruined everything. I stepped forward, placing a hand on Olivia's shoulder. Martin, I think you should go. He shook his head, desperation in his eyes. No, please. Just let me explain. Olivia, your mother and we've been having problems for a long time. It's complicated. Stop it, I snapped. Don't you dare try to justify what you did or blame our marriage problems. You made a choice, Martin. Own it. Martin's face hardened. Fine, but I'm not giving up on my daughter. I'll fight for custody if I have to. Ice ran through my veins. You wouldn't dare. Try me, he growled. Olivia looked between us, her face pale. I don't want to live with you, Dad. I want to stay with Mom. Martin's expression softened. Sweetie, I know you're upset now, but get out. Olivia's voice was low, trembling with anger. I don't want to see you anymore. Just go. With a last pleading look at me, Martin turned and left. As the door closed behind him, Olivia collapsed into my arms, sobbing once more. Over her head, I met Teresa's worried gaze. We both knew this was far from over. Later that night, after Olivia had cried herself to sleep, I sat at Teresa's kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me. With shaking hands, I began to type. Documentation of Martin Henderson's infidelity and its impact on our family. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was determined to protect Olivia and build a new life for us, no matter what it took. I sat in my car outside Martin's office, my heart pounding. After days of digging through bank statements and phone records, I'd finally uncovered the truth. Now I needed to confront him face to face. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and marched into the building. The receptionist looked up, startled. Mrs. Henderson, we weren't expecting you. I need to see my husband, I said, my voice steady despite my churning stomach. Before she could respond, Martin's office door opened. He froze when he saw me, his face pale. Elaine, what are you doing here? I held up the manila folder in my hand. We need to talk. Now. Martin glanced nervously at the receptionist before ushering me into his office. As soon as the door closed, I slammed the folder onto his desk. Who is she, Martin? He blinked, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? I opened the folder, spreading out credit card statements and hotel receipts. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I know about the charges at the Hilton, the jewelry store purchases. Who is she? Martin's shoulders sagged. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking old and defeated. Her name is Rebecca. She was a client. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of his desk to steady myself. How long? Elaine, please. How long? He wouldn't meet my eyes. 8 months. 8 months. While I was planning our anniversary trip, while we were celebrating Olivia's birthday, I felt sick. Do you love her? The words came out in a whisper. Martin's head snapped up. No, God, no. It was just, I don't know, a distraction, I guess. Things between us have been so strained lately. Don't you dare blame this on me, I hissed. You made a choice, Martin. You chose to betray our vows, to lie to me and Olivia for months. He reached for my hand, but I jerked away. Elaine, I'm so sorry. Please, can we work this out? For Olivia's sake? I laughed bitterly. You should have thought about Olivia before you started sleeping with your client. Martin's face hardened. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I'll fight you every step of the way. I won't let you take my daughter from me. Your daughter? I spat. The one you abandoned? The one who says she never wants to see you again? He flinched as if I'd struck him. She doesn't mean that. She's just upset. She has every right to be upset. You broke her heart, Martin. You broke our family. We stared at each other across the desk, years of love and trust crumbling between us. Finally, Martin spoke, his voice low and dangerous. I won't give up without a fight, Elaine. I have resources you can't imagine. If you try to take Olivia away from me, I'll make sure you have nothing left. A chill ran down my spine, but I stood my ground. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I gathered the documents, my hands shaking. You've already taken everything that matters, Martin. But if you want a war, you've got one. As I turned to leave, Martin called out, Wait, there's something else you should know. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. What? Rebecca, she's pregnant. The world tilted on its axis. I stumbled, catching myself on the doorframe. What did you say? Martin's voice was barely audible. She's 3 months along. It's mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Without another word, I wrenched open the door and fled. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, gasping for air. A baby. Martin was having a baby with another woman. The final betrayal, the ultimate nail in the coffin of our marriage. As the shock faded, a new emotion took its place. Determination. Martin wanted a fight? He'd get one. I pulled out my phone and dialed Teresa's number. I need the name of the best divorce lawyer in town, I said when she answered. It's time to take Martin for everything he's worth. I stared at the divorce papers spread across Teresa's kitchen table, my signature still fresh on the dotted line. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. Are you sure about this, Elaine? Teresa asked gently. I nodded, my jaw set. I have to do this, for Olivia and for myself. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Teresa went to answer it, returning with a grim expression. It's your mother-in-law. My stomach dropped. Linda. Of course, Martin would send her to do his dirty work. I steeled myself as Linda burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with anger. Elaine, what do you think you're doing? Filing for divorce? Have you lost your mind? I stood, facing her head on. Linda, I understand you're upset, but this is between Martin and me. She waved a dismissive hand. Nonsense. Marriage is about family, about commitment. You can't just throw it away because of one little mistake. Little mistake? I felt my temper rising. Your son had an affair for 8 months. He got another woman pregnant. That's not a little mistake, Linda. That's a betrayal. Linda's eyes widened. Pregnant? What are you talking about? I froze, realizing my error. Martin hadn't told his parents yet. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. She sank into a chair, the fight draining out of her. Oh, Martin, what have you done? As much as I resented Linda's interference, I couldn't help feeling a twinge of sympathy. She was losing her family, too. The back door slammed, and Olivia walked in, stopping short when she saw Linda. Grandma, what are you doing here? Linda stood, arms outstretched. Oh, sweetheart, I came to talk some sense into your mother. This divorce nonsense. It's not nonsense, Olivia cut her off, her voice cold. Dad cheated. He lied to all of us. Linda flinched. Olivia, honey, I know you're hurt, but your father loves you. We can work this out as a family. Olivia's eyes flashed with anger. We're not a family anymore. Dad made sure of that. I stepped between them, sensing Olivia's rising distress. Linda, I think it's best if you go now. She hesitated, then nodded. Just think about what you're doing, Elaine, to all of us. As the door closed behind her, Olivia turned to me, her face pale. Mom, you're not going to change your mind, are you? I pulled her into a hug. No, sweetie, I promise you, we're moving forward. Later that evening, as Olivia did homework in her room, my phone buzzed with a text from Martin. We need to talk about the baby. My hands shook as I replied, There's nothing to discuss. It's over. His response came quickly. Please, Elaine, just hear me out for old time's sake. I stared at the screen, torn. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to cut all ties, but another part, the part that still remembered the good times, hesitated. Before I could decide, another text came through. I'm outside. Please. My heart raced as I peeked out the window. There he was, sitting in his car, looking lost and defeated. Everything okay, Mom? Olivia called from upstairs. I took a deep breath, making my decision. Everything's fine, honey. I just need to step out for a minute. As I walked towards Martin's car, I steeled myself for whatever came next. This conversation could change everything, for better or worse. But I was done being a victim. Whatever Martin had to say, I would face it head-on, for myself and for Olivia. I tapped on the car window, my voice steady as I spoke. You have 5 minutes, Martin. Make them count. I stood in the middle of our new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the lingering scent of fresh paint. It wasn't much, but it was ours, a fresh start for Olivia and me. Mom, Olivia called from her room. Where's the box with my soccer trophies? Check near the bookshelf, honey. I replied, smiling at her enthusiasm. Despite everything, Olivia was adapting well to our new life. As I unpacked dishes in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "How's the new place? Settling in okay?" I was about to reply when a sharp knock at the door made me jump. Frowning, I set down my phone and went to answer it. The moment I opened the door, I wished I hadn't. Linda stood there, her face a mask of barely contained fury. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "Linda, this isn't a good time." She whirled to face me. "When is a good time, Elaine? When you've completely destroyed our family?" I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my voice calm. "I didn't destroy anything, Linda. Martin made his choices." "Mom?" Olivia appeared in the hallway, her eyes widening at the sight of her grandmother. "What's going on?" Linda's expression softened slightly. "Oh, Olivia, sweetheart, I've come to talk some sense into your mother. This divorce nonsense has gone on long enough." Olivia's face hardened. "It's not nonsense, Grandma. Dad cheated. He lied to all of us." "Olivia, go to your room," I said quietly. "I'll handle this." As soon as Olivia's door closed, Linda rounded on me. "How dare you turn my granddaughter against her father, against our family?" I felt my own anger rising. "I haven't turned anyone against anyone, Linda. Martin did that all on his own when he decided to have an affair. People make mistakes, Elaine. Marriage is about forgiveness, about working through the hard times." I laughed bitterly. "Forgiveness? He got another woman pregnant, Linda. How am I supposed to forgive that?" Linda's face paled. That's just a rumor. Martin assured me it wasn't true." "Well, he lied to you too, then, because I heard it straight from him." For a moment, Linda looked lost. Then her eyes hardened again. "Even so, there are ways to deal with that situation. You don't have to throw away 23 years of marriage." I was about to retort when the front door burst open. Martin strode in, looking frantic. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he demanded. "I told you to let me handle this." Linda turned to him, her voice pleading. "I'm trying to save your marriage, Martin, to keep our family together." Martin ran a hand through his hair, looking desperate. "Elaine, please, can we talk about this? There has to be a way to work things out." I felt cornered, overwhelmed. "Both of you need to leave. Now." "Not until you agree to give our marriage another chance," Martin insisted. "Another chance?" Olivia's voice rang out. She stood in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "After everything he's done?" Martin's face crumpled. "Liv, sweetheart, I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you and your mother more than anything." "Then why did you do it?" Olivia screamed. "Why did you ruin everything?" The room fell silent, the weight of Olivia's pain hanging heavy in the air. I moved to comfort her, but she jerked away. "I hate you," she spat at Martin. "I hate all of this." Before anyone could react, Olivia bolted for the door, shoving past Martin and Linda. "Olivia!" I cried, racing after her. But by the time I reached the street, she was gone, swallowed up by the busy city around us. I turned back to Martin and Linda, my heart pounding with fear and fury. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" As they stared at me, shock written across their faces, I made a decision. No more playing nice, no more trying to keep the peace. "I want both of you out of my apartment and out of our lives," I said, my voice cold. "And if anything happens to my daughter, I swear to God I'll make you regret the day you ever met me." My heart raced as I dialed Olivia's number for the 100th time. Straight to voicemail. Again. It had been hours since she ran off, and the sun was setting, casting long shadows across our new neighborhood. "Anything?" Martin asked, his voice tight with worry. I shook my head, fighting back tears. Despite everything, we'd come together to search for our daughter. Even Linda was out there, checking Olivia's favorite spots from our old neighborhood. Just as I was about to suggest calling the police, my phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "Olivia's here. She's safe." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a new wave of anxiety. "She's at Teresa's," I told Martin. "I'm going to get her." "I'm coming with you," he insisted. Too exhausted to argue, I nodded. The car ride was tense, neither of us speaking. When we pulled up to Teresa's house, I saw Olivia sitting on the porch steps, her eyes red and puffy. As soon as she saw us, she stood, her body tense. "I'm not going back," she declared. I approached slowly, hands raised. "Liv, honey, we were so worried. Are you okay?" She crossed her arms, glaring at Martin. "I'm fine. I just needed to get away from everything." Martin stepped forward. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you, but please, can we talk about this? Olivia's eyes flashed with anger. Talk about what, Dad? How you threw away our family for some woman? How you're having a baby with her? I saw Martin flinch at her words. Good. Let him feel the pain he'd caused us. It's not that simple, Martin began, but I cut him off. No, Martin, it is that simple. You made your choices, and now we're all living with the consequences. Just then, Linda's car screeched to a halt behind ours. She burst out, her face a mix of relief and determination. Oh, thank God you're all right, she said to Olivia. Then she turned to me, her expression hardening. Elaine, this has gone on long enough. We need to fix this family now. I felt my temper rising. Fix it? How exactly do you propose we do that, Linda? To my shock, Martin stepped forward, taking my hand. By remarrying, he said softly. Elaine, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I love you. I love our family. Please give me another chance. I jerked my hand away, stunned. Are you out of your mind? Linda nodded enthusiastically. It's the perfect solution. We can have a small ceremony, renew your vows, show Olivia that love can overcome anything. I laughed bitterly. Love? This isn't about love. This is about you trying to save face, to pretend everything's fine when it's not. Martin's face hardened. Fine. If you won't consider remarriage, then I want to be compensated for the wedding expenses. After all, you're the one ending this marriage. I stared at him, incredulous. Excuse me? You heard me? He said, his voice cold. I spent a fortune on our wedding. If you're throwing that away, I want to be reimbursed. The absurdity of it all hit me like a tidal wave. I felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. You want me to pay you for a wedding that happened over 20 years ago? After you cheated on me? Linda stepped in, her voice soothing. Now, Elaine, let's be reasonable. Martin's just trying to protect himself financially. You can't blame him for that. I looked from Martin to Linda to Olivia, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. All of you, get out of my sight before I do something I'll regret. Martin opened his mouth to argue, but Olivia cut him off. Just go, Dad. You've done enough damage. As Martin and Linda retreated to their cars, I turned to Olivia, my heart breaking for her all over again. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never wanted any of this for you. Olivia's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of pain and determination. I know, Mom, but we're going to be okay, right? Just you and me? I pulled her into a fierce hug, feeling her trembling against me. Yes, baby, we're going to be okay. I promise. As we stood there holding each other, I knew the fight was far from over, but for the first time in months I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, Olivia and I would face it together. I stood in the courtroom, my heart pounding as the judge reviewed our case. Olivia sat beside me, her hand clasped tightly in mine. Across the aisle, Martin glared daggers at us, Linda whispering furiously in his ear. Just as the judge was about to speak, the courtroom doors burst open. My father, Kenneth, strode in, his face set with determination. Your Honor, he called out, I have evidence that's crucial to this case. The judge frowned but nodded. Proceed, Mr. Lawson. Dad approached the bench, handing over a thick folder. These are financial records showing that Martin Henderson has been embezzling from his company for years. The money he claims my daughter owes him for their wedding, it was stolen funds. The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. I stared at Martin, shocked. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide with panic. That's a lie, he shouted, jumping to his feet. Your Honor, this is a desperate attempt to— Sit down, Mr. Henderson, the judge ordered sharply. She flipped through the documents, her expression growing more severe by the second. I leaned over to Dad, whispering, How did you get this? He squeezed my shoulder. I've had my suspicions for years, Elaine. When I heard about his ridiculous demands, I knew it was time to dig deeper. The judge cleared her throat, silencing the room. In light of this new evidence, I'm ordering a full investigation into Mr. Henderson's finances. As for the divorce settlement— She turned to me, her eyes kind but firm. Mrs. Henderson, you are granted full custody of your daughter, Olivia. Mr. Henderson will pay alimony and child support as originally outlined. His claim for reimbursement of wedding expenses is denied. Relief washed over me. It was over. We had won. As we left the courtroom, Martin caught up to us, his face a mask of desperation. Elaine, please, you can't do this to me, to our family. I turned to face him, feeling a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Our family? You destroyed our family the moment you decided to cheat, Martin, and now you'll have to live with the consequences. Linda appeared at his side, her face twisted with anger. This isn't over, Elaine. We'll appeal. No, Mom, Martin interrupted, his shoulders sagging in defeat. It's over. As they walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Olivia hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. We did it, Mom. We're free. Dad wrapped his arms around both of us. I'm so proud of you, Elaine. You stood your ground, fought for what was right. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Olivia and I thrived in our apartment, building a life filled with laughter and love. We heard through the grapevine that Martin had lost his job and was facing criminal charges for embezzlement. Linda had retreated to Florida, humiliated by the scandal. One sunny afternoon, as Olivia and I walked through the park near our new home, she turned to me with a serious expression. Mom, I want you to know, I'm okay. About Dad, I'm still angry, but I'm not letting it consume me anymore. I pulled her close, marveling at her strength and maturity. I'm so proud of you, sweetie. We've both come a long way, haven't we? She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Yeah, we have, and you know what? I think we're going to be just fine. As we continued our walk, I reflected on the tumultuous journey we'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fights. They had all led us here, to this moment of peace and understanding. I thought about the woman I was when this all began. Scared, hurt, unsure of my future. Now, I stood tall, confident in my ability to face whatever life threw my way. Olivia and I had emerged stronger, our bond unbreakable. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly hopeful. We had weathered the storm, and now, bathed in the warm sunlight of a new beginning, I knew that the best was yet to come. As we rounded the corner towards home, I squeezed Olivia's hand, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, two strong, resilient women ready to write the next chapter of our lives on our own terms.